in serious damage to property, involves the use of firearm or explosives, involves the release of any dangerous, hazardous, toxic, or radioactive substance or microbial or other biological agent or toxin into the environment, interference with an electronic system resulting in the disruption of a provision of communication, financial, transport or other essential services, interference of and disrupt the provision of essential or emergent service, Mr. Speaker, like the medical case in Kitengela, interference or disrupt its provisions of essential or emergent services, prejudices national security or public safety. So, Mr. Speaker, it's in black and white. If your acts in any way involve use of force or violence, it is enough for you to be charged for terror. And, Mr. Speaker, you don't have to be Osama bin Laden to be a terrorist. It's enough, Mr. Speaker, once you invade a police station, ban a court, ban a supermarket, Mr. Speaker, ban government installation, create fear, use, Mr. Speaker, the opportunity you have to disrupt emergency services like medical services, transport, you are a terrorist. And so, Mr. Speaker, what's on remaining is to go through court process to find out whether Honorable Mukunji is culpable. Otherwise, the acts on their own, Mr. Speaker, especially financing, is even more serious, Mr. Speaker, if you are involved in it. And, Mr. Speaker, it is laughable. These things are laughable until the day of conviction. You know, it's still jokes until, Mr. Speaker, when you are convicted of terror, then you realize the consequences that brings to you as a person and, Mr. Speaker, your loved ones or any other person associated to you. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish my friend the very best. When I met him first when he came to Parliament, he looked like a pastor, Mr. Speaker. I was then surprised that he was suspected of such very serious and heinous acts. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mark Mwenje.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question 9 of 2025. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances, explain the circumstances that led to the death of Mr. Brian Luca Minor of ID number 330372236, who lost his life during the recent demonstrations of 25th June 2025 and was reported at Murkomen Police Station under OB number 20/26/6/2025. 2, state the measures put in place to ensure the family of the victim is compensated for the loss of their kin. And 3, outline the steps taken by the government to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future and to guarantee safety, including protection of peaceful protesters during demonstrations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to respond as follows. Regarding the circumstances that led to the death of Brian Luca Minor of ID number 330372236, who lost his life during the recent demonstrations, Mr. Speaker, Lydia Waithera, also known as Lydia Njoki Nduta, a resident of the KCC area, reported at Murkomen Police Station via OB number 20/26/6/2025 that her husband, Brian Luca Minor, deceased, left their residence on 25th of June 2025 at around 9 a.m. for Charina Stage, where he worked as a Kamangira, otherwise a tout actually, otherwise known as Kamangira. The deceased returned home at about 10 a.m. and handed her Kenya shillings 400, besides informing her that he was proceeding to the Central Business District to participate in demonstrations. Later that day, at about 3 p.m., the deceased was escorted home by his friend Brian Kiiga Mbugwa, who informed their wife that they had been among thousands of demonstrators at the CBD when the deceased was injured. There were, however, no visible injuries and Brian could not provide further details regarding the circumstances under which the deceased sustained the alleged injuries. The deceased complained of a severe headache, and at about 5 p.m., the headache persisted and he was therefore taken to Silent Hill Hospital within KCC area. Upon examination, he was referred to Metropolitan Hospital in Buruburu for a head CT scan. He was later returned to Silent Hill Hospital after the scan, but was pronounced dead upon arrival. DCI officers from Dandora commenced investigation into the incident via Mollem Police Station Inquest number 4 of 2025. A request for a post-mortem examination was made to Kenyatta University Referral Hospital, where the body was preserved. The post-mortem was conducted on 27th of June 2025 by Dr. Ndekwa PM, who concluded that the cause of death was craniovertebral injuries due to severe blunt force trauma. Investigations are ongoing to unravel the circumstances of the injuries and possible suspects. Mr. Speaker, on measures put in place to ensure that the family of the victim is compensated for the loss of their kin, Mr. Speaker, the government has established, and that was the most recent, a formal mechanism to coordinate compensation for victims of demonstrations and riots held across the country. This presidential initiative will be coordinated by the Office of the President and will be supported by the Ministry of Interior, National Administration, and the Office of the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, regarding the steps taken by the government to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future and to guarantee safety, including protection of peaceful protesters during demonstrations. Mr. Speaker, let me first say, every time we come and read such stories, Mr. Speaker, it's not just a story. There are people behind it. There are families, wives, children, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties, and so many other relatives and community. Mr. Speaker, it's very painful and very sometimes demoralizing to keep reading such kind of unfortunate deaths. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to even ask ourselves as Parliament, is it possible, Mr. Speaker, going forward, to have possible proper, coordinated, legally regulated protests so that, Mr. Speaker, we have processes that are regulated, the place, the time, and then we can provide resources, including police officers, to escort people. Can we, for once, have maandamano that ends up with shaking hands between police and citizens as they go home? It doesn't matter who was in office. The overall party leader of Honorable Mbui, who had asked a question earlier, was in the same post, was a president just the other day. And Mr. Speaker, it didn't matter the side where we were or where the others are at the moment. Can we, for once, as an entire parliament and political, in a bipartisan manner, find ways of ensuring that protests can be peaceful in Kenya? That's all that really bothers me every day. Because, Mr. Speaker, let me say that police officers are not politicians. They are not pursuing a particular political agenda. But every time protests happen, they are the ones who are the most discussed. They are the ones who find themselves, they have committed offenses or suspected to commit offense. They are tired. They have to be in the streets for over 24 hours. Mr. Speaker, innocent young people are also finding the loss of life. Children and are left fatherless. Mr. Speaker, it is not acceptable. We just have to agree as a nation, somehow, in a bipartisan manner, that we can find a mechanism that makes protests peaceful. Mr. Speaker, and every time, what pains us from even the ministry, is every time we announce that whoever is preparing protests to tell us the time and the route, we are the same people who are elected who go public and say that our right cannot be regulated. We'll protest anywhere, anytime, the way we want. But, Mr. Speaker, neither us nor our children get injured in this protest. So, Mr. Speaker, we just have to think about how best we are going to deal with this issue. Of course, apart from an exception of Honorable Mbui and a few others, Mr. Speaker, I know that's where Honorable Mbui was going to go, whom I sympathize with the situation he went through last time. But in most cases, it is the poor people who end up fatherless and suffer. So, Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to complying with existing laws governing public order management and adhering to policy directives on the use of force through the following measures. 1, continuous training and professional development programs for police officers, which focuses on evolving trends, specialized techniques for riot management and other relevant areas to enhance operational effectiveness during demonstrations. 2, utilization of tools such as CCTV, surveillance, drone monitoring, digital communication system, and incidental mapping to monitor crowds, track real threats to real times, and coordinate timely interventions. thereby improving the effectiveness of law enforcement during protests. Even as the National Police Service prepared the same, I want to thank businesses across the country who have installed their own CCTVs. Because of the 1,500 people arrested, Mr. Speaker, most of them was as a result of CCTV cameras that are privately owned that helped us to see the people went to loot supermarkets, the people who, Mr. Speaker, committed certain offenses. Of course, media also helped, and filming by citizens, including the incident which I will answer later, that involved a young man who was shot, Mr. Speaker, and armed. So the presence of technology can be of great help. Mr. Speaker, engagement with community leaders like civil society organizations, Murkomen initiatives, to also ensure that there is an early warning systems. Issuance of advanced public advisories and use of media engagement to promote peaceful demonstration and warn against unlawful activities. We've been engaging the media to also exercise a lot of restraint and become responsible when they're reporting. Use of advanced, leveraging real-time intelligence, informer networks and surveillance systems to identify planned disturbances and criminal actors before mobilization. Arresting and prosecuting persons who engage in criminal activities that undermine law and order, including the planners and the financiers. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his response. Although, Honorable Speaker, there is an assumption that all victims of police brutality they died by either a bullet. And Honorable Speaker, my follow-up supplementary would be for the Cabinet Secretary to just confirm that it is true there are youths who died during the protests, and whether some of them died as a result of beatings. And here in Nairobi, Honorable Speaker, the police, and there was a special unit of goons who are operating with the police, and unfortunately this team beat some of these youths, and Brian, one of the youths who, there was a video even in town of him protesting at the time, and he's one of the youths who are beaten by the police and unfortunately died painfully much later in the day, Honorable Speaker. So we just want him to confirm that these are one of the victims who will also get compensation at the right time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary to what measures is put in place to ensure the National Police Service or the police are there to High Court judgment or directive that required any policeman assigned for purposes of riots or demonstration should be easily identifiable. That's by name, they have a tag, they don't put on masks to conceal their faces, they don't put hoods to conceal their identity, and their uniform. Because, Honorable Speaker, we have seen so many plainclothes people, nobody knows whether they are security men or they are hooligans or the terrorists, as he calls them, working hand in hand with the police. And they ones are responsible for most of the deaths and the injuries to innocent demonstrators. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the CS.
Sorry, I thought you said Waziri.
My name is synonymous to Waziri, so sorry. Thank you, Speaker, for giving me the chance to ask, and thank you to the CS. I'm happy that you are going to compensate the victims. Matu lost 2 lives. But my question, what about those who lost properties? So can you clarify whether you are going to compensate those who lost properties? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Could the Cabinet Secretary confirm to the House that the compensation mechanism that has been established will also cover police officers who were injured during the demonstrations, but also that the list of the civilians who will be compensated will be prepared largely by non-governmental organizations such as Independent Medical Legal Unit, Voice Africa, Kenya National Human Rights Commission, so that there is no discrimination among those who are to be compensated. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Sir.
Mr. Speaker, first let me say, yes, there are people who died in the demonstrations, not as a result of bullets, Mr. Speaker, but different injuries. You remember that, Mr. Speaker, there were all kinds of hooligans who are carrying stones, some machetes, Mr. Speaker, others they had rungus and all kind of crude weapons. So, Mr. Speaker, that is what makes it very difficult to know whether this very gentleman was injured by a police officer or a civilian. Mr. Speaker, there is no civilian wing of police officers. There is no wing of police officers that are goons that were working with police. I shall be responding to another statement in relation to the same. And, Mr. Speaker, we are making it very clear, Mr. Speaker, that the police officers find themselves sometimes in between two warring demonstrating groups, some saying we are for peace, some saying we are protecting our property, and so forth. And so, Mr. Speaker, police officers, only those police officers who are gazetted and are properly appointed to serve as police officers in the Republic of Kenya. Again, I insist that, Mr. Speaker, any life lost is regrettable. None of us is here to celebrate. And, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't matter the circumstances under which life was lost. Assuming even he was a robber and he died, it doesn't make us to celebrate. It's still a loss of life. So, because, Mr. Speaker, if it was possible to arrest that robber, maybe he would change its ways and he would be a different person. So there is no celebration of any loss of life on our part. It's just regrettable whether the person was committing an offense or not committing an offense, and it's therefore important for all of us. And remember that a child may be a robber, but the mother is not, the father is not, or their children are not, or their wife, and they still will miss a father or a child. So all those circumstances, if we apply compassion in all these cases, we'll appreciate that any loss of life is still painful to a person somewhere or a people somewhere. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of identification of police officers, Mr. Speaker, deployment for police officers to protest, there are different formations of police officers that are deployed, Mr. Speaker. So if you say a police officer should not wear a helmet, Mr. Speaker, for example, most of the police officers all over the world that are, Mr. Speaker, are deployed, they wear uniform, and their uniform is helmet. Mr. Speaker, helmet conceals a police officer more than a mask. So the order from from any court that says that all police officers should wear their uniform, then it is clear that when they wear the helmets, they are wearing their uniform. It's also clear that police officers who are serving as DCI do not have uniform. They are always on civilian. And they're all deployed to go to the protest because they must be immediately collecting evidence of any incidents that are happening. They don't have to wait until an incident happens, and they are deployed to be part and parcel of that protest. So, Mr. Speaker, all the protests that have been deployed in Kenya, at least to the best of my knowledge, especially for the time I've been in office, have been done according to the police standing orders and according to the law. And, Mr. Speaker, nothing has gone or breached the provisions of the law. Mr. Speaker, in also, just for you
Minister, you seem to be importing a new word into the description in the Constitution. Article 37, and we wrote it at Bomas, talks of assemble, demonstrate, picket, and present petitions. Where are you getting protests from? Because a demonstration is not necessarily a protest.
Mr. Speaker, the English definition of protest, Mr. Speaker, would include picketing and demonstrations, if I am not wrong. And, Mr. Speaker, if we have to stick to Article 37, then I can say demonstrations. Yes. But sometimes what we witness in Kenya are not necessarily demonstrations.
Because the moment it becomes a riot, it ceases to be a demonstration.
Yes, yes. Protest may not be negative, but when it becomes riots, Mr. Speaker, definitely they cease to be constitutional. And in most cases, they're not. They're always riots, Mr. Speaker. Starts as demonstrations, and at some point they are taken over by riots. Mr. Speaker, I was at the stage of identification. So just to conclude, Mr. Speaker, deployment of police officers, I know that sometimes there have been judicial overreach, and they say when you deploy police officers to any operations, they must be seen, identification, and cover themselves, because the judge who is making that decision is making it at a comfort in his office in Milimani with air condition. But when you deploy our police officers to Liboy, Mr. Speaker, or to somewhere in Kibish, or somewhere in Lamu or Kiunga, Mr. Speaker, there are many, many other things we do that are supposed to protect our police officers. So it's not a straitjacket thing. And sometimes courts make decisions that they cannot enforce, because someone is saying you dress in a particular manner, but the police officer will not be there when the judge is not going to be there when the police are fighting Al-Shabaab to monitor how they will dress and how they will look like. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a sensitive area, and I have always insisted that across the arms of government, there must be an understanding of what is called national interest that is beyond our sectarian competition or political competition that we have. Mr. Speaker, on compensation of loss of property, at the moment, the directive of His Excellency the President in establishing this compensatory mechanism does not include compensation for property. And I think that is for good cause, Mr. Speaker, because if you were to value the property that is destroyed, even as a supermarket like the one in Meru alone, or the looting that happened in OTC, and the whole destruction, it would take the entire budget, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, of Ministry of Interior, for example, to compensate those people. And then we would be encouraging also goons and criminals to be destroying property, and then people are compensated. I think this is a mechanism out of compassion that His Excellency is putting in place to just look at the loss of life. And you can never compensate life. I think even the word compensate is a compassionate support, if you may ask me, because there's nothing, no amount of money can bring back life or can be equated to life by any family. So maybe let me tie together that with what Honorable Karoli Omondi raised, Mr. Speaker, concerning the mechanism of that compensation. First, let me confirm that this includes the police officers. So police officers who have also got injured or died in the course of these incidences and protests, Mr. Speaker, from 2017 would also be part and parcel of this team to be compensated. And it is the Office of the President, his advisor on constitutional affairs and human rights, Professor Makao Mutua, who will coordinate the rest of the team to establish a fair mechanism of identifying the victims. And Mr. Speaker, I don't think it's an easy job. So he has to consult all these institutions as has been raised by Honorable Karoli Omondi. And considering the background of Professor Makao Mutua, I have no doubt in my mind that his experience in the civil society will come in handy in consulting those institutions and people who have suffered. Let's not assume it's going to be an easy task, especially in a country that when you compensate IDPs, a new set of IDPs come up. And I know cases where even when you complete one government, finishes IDPs, another government, gets another petition of IDPs. So we have to be very strict in this sense so that we don't make a mockery of such a very important and noble idea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Wamshomba. Gadoni Wamshomba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to provide a report on the total number of female bodies recovered from Kware dam site in Embakasi, including an update on how many of the victims have been positively identified through forensic or DNA analysis. Clarify whether the investigations are still ongoing, considering that the main suspect escaped from police custody and the investigation into the case has somehow reportedly gone cold. state the specific steps undertaken by the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the DCI, to progress the case, locate the suspect, or identify additional perpetrators. Clarify whether there are any new policies or protective interventions being implemented by the ministry to prevent future tragedies related to abductions and femicides, including steps taken to reassure affected communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to respond as follows. First, regarding a report on the total number of female bodies recovered from the quarry dam site in Embakasi, Mr. Speaker, following public reports regarding the mysterious disappearance of people, the National Police Service commenced investigations into the matter. Homicide unit was deployed to quarry dam site in Embakasi after suspected luggage-wrapped sacks were sighted floating in stagnant quarry waters. Upon retrieval, the sacks were found to contain human remains. The operation, which spanned several days, resulted in the recovery of 17 packages containing dismembered human body parts. Most of the recovered bodies were in an advanced stage of decomposition and were preserved at the city mortuary, where post-mortem examination were conducted on the body parts. Subsequent DNA analysis led to the positive identification of 5 of the victims, who were matched to their respective family members: Josephine Mulango Owino, Roslyn Moth Ongongo, Wilkista Ojambo Ososo, Christine Mwende Madina, and Rosemary Ojambo. Mr. Speaker, on whether the investigations are still ongoing, considering that the main suspect escaped from police custody, Mr. Speaker, through forensic analysis, Mr. Collins Jumaisi Halusa was positively identified as the prime suspect in the murders of our mentioned individuals. The suspect was arraigned before the Chief Magistrate Court at Kadara under criminal miscellaneous application number E861-2024 and detained for 30 days pending investigation, and was remanded at Gigiri Police Station. On 20th August of 2024, the suspect escaped from custody, lawful custody at Gigiri Police Station. A warrant of arrest was issued against him, which remains in force. The Internal Affairs Unit launched an independent inquiry to establish the circumstances around the escape, and investigations are ongoing. Multi-agency operations are in progress to trace and apprehend the suspect so that he can be charged before the court of law. Regarding the specific steps undertaken by Directorate of Criminal Investigation to progress the case, locate the suspect, or identify additional perpetrators, Mr. Speaker, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, in collaboration with other multi-agency security teams, is actively working to trace and apprehend the suspect. Members of the public are encouraged to share any relevant information, Mr. Speaker, with the police through the Fichua Kwa DCI number, toll-free number 0800-722-203, or via WhatsApp at 0709-570-000. On whether any new policies or protective interventions are being implemented, Mr. Speaker, the National Police Service is currently implementing recent policy directive issued by the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry for Interior and National Administration. These directives focus on strengthening security operations, enhancing public safety, and improving accountability in the handling of the cases such as abductions and femicide. Key measures include intensified security operations through increased deployment of officers to high-risk areas and enhancing night patrols and highway surveillance. Enhanced investigative capacity to fast-track forensic and cyber crimes investigations and train detectives on handling gender-based violence and abduction cases. Victim protection measures, including expansion of gender desks and 24-hour helplines for urgent reporting and linking victims and families to psychosocial and legal support services. 4, strengthening oversight and accountability through enhanced collaboration with Independent Police Oversight Authority and Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service. And finally, community-centered policing, scaling up Nyumba Kumi initiative to improve local intelligence gathering and conducting regular community safety awareness forums, enhancing collaboration with the local community. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Honorable Mshomba.
Honorable Speaker, I have listened to what the Cabinet Secretary have to say concerning the cases of the ladies that he confirms that were properly matched with their relatives and they were confirmed that they were murdered by the suspect who disappeared. But Mr. Speaker, I refuse to sit in this house to listen to the Cabinet Secretary confirm that his ministry cannot be able to capture suspects who were previously under their arms and custody. I refuse to sit in this house, Mr. Speaker, to listen to that kind of an
You are already
explanation.
sitting in this house. Just
Yes,
ask
I'm
questions.
refusing to listen to the answer he's giving. It is not right for the Cabinet Secretary to come to answer a question and tell us that the suspect disappeared and he's not giving us hope. Which hope is he telling the people, the victims? What hope is he promising? Is he telling us that we are going to wait for the suspect to disappear forever? It has been 3 months since the suspect disappeared, Mr. Speaker. Those are families that are paining, grieving loved ones. We watch on television bodies being retrieved from Kware, this dam site, Mr. Speaker. The minister cannot come here and tell us that he wants members of public to help him identify suspect who was previously in their custody. As a woman leader, as a mother of girls, I refuse to take that kind of an answer from the Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. Yes, Lelmengit.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I would also want to thank the Honorable CS for articulating and giving answers and statements concerning our questions. My question is, Honorable Speaker, to the Honorable CS is, given that many who are demonstrating were youth voicing either their frustrations. Sorry?
We are way past that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Honorable
Being
Speaker.
a first timer, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
When you joyride, you must be relevant to the question. But go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me rephrase my question again. Given that those who were demonstrating, Honorable Speaker, were mostly the youth who are voicing their frustrations and probably political frustrations, is the government open to structured dialogue with them so that we can avoid this menace in the future? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mama Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I think the CS needs to understand the pain that we are having as women when we see the number.
Hold on, Basaris. Take your seat. Honorable Mchomba, it is discourtesy to the House for you to ask a question being prosecuted now with supplementaries and then walk out. It is total discourtesy. Go back and take your seat.